Markets for Matthews Real Estate Investment Services here in beautiful, sunny Tampa, Florida. So now that Gasparilla is over, the next big thing on the horizon is Super Bowl for all you folks out there. In the meantime, I want to talk about some articles that came out in the last month talking about rental income and the fact that it's stalling all over the country and it's starting to pull back here in Tampa, Miami, Naples, and lots of Florida markets. And then we want to talk about, what that slower rent growth means for interest rates. We want to talk about what that slower rent growth means for multifamily property owners who have loans coming due this year that are maturing. We want to talk about how that affects you if you're a multifamily buyer and how you can develop a strategy for the next 12 or 14 months. I'll talk about how it affects you if you're trying to rent a property or if you're a potential home buyer. So lend me about 10 minutes of your time. I'll go through some data. We'll have a little bit of fun and look at a short video, and then I'll give you some advice. Let's get off to the races, and let's start right here with this Wall Street Journal article. Let's see. All right, first I have to share my screen. And as some of you know, I sometimes have difficulty with that. Here we go. Okay. All right, what I'm looking at here is an article that came out, and they talk about, the headline on this is rents come down for the wealthy while rising for the rest. That's a little bit of a clickbait for here. We are seeing rents across the country, and we're seeing it here in Tampa, we're seeing it in Miami, that some of the higher end condominiums, some of the higher end homes that were being rented, those rents are starting to soften. The truth of the matter is the rent growth is starting to pull back all over the country. And the reason for that is we're seeing a whole lot new apartments. If you've been following me over the last 8 or 10 years, you'll know that I've been saying we have a housing shortage, we have a housing shortage. The short background on that is when the great financial crisis hit, builders just pulled back. We had too many homes built in this country, and then over the last 15 years, we have lagged demand. As more people moved into certain areas, they didn't build homes fast enough. In Southern California, example, the backlog is so tremendous, I don't know if they'll ever be able to meet demand with building. But here in Florida, we're starting to see that new construction for multifamily properties is starting to temper rents all across the area, and certainly in the high end. So if you're a high-end renter in Tampa, if you're looking for a $5,000 a month downtown Channelside apartment, or you're looking to rent a beautiful South Tampa home, you might see a little bit of break there. So let's go to the next part here. Next thing I wanted to share with you is this CoStar report. It talks about what to watch for. Okay. There is still positive rent growth. And if you're looking at this chart that I pulled up from a CoStar article, Tampa, by the way, is still in the top 20 in rent growth. But Tampa has seen, and we'll show that in the next little slide that I put up there, Tampa's seen tremendous rent growth since pre-pandemic. The pandemic, last year, rents are an average of 50% higher than they were pre-pandemic. And so that represents, like 15 to 22% rent growth year over year. That was really incredible for Florida multifamily owners. That rent growth has stalled. We saw it pull back a little bit last year, and the prediction for this year in Tampa is that rent growth is going to be, kind of normal, maybe high 3% below the inflation rate. Southern California again is still outpacing inflation, but most of the part in Florida, you're going to see rent growth temper, and that's because I think things got so ahead of the curve. You always hear me talk about try to skate to where the puck's going to be, and not where the puck is right now. That's an old Wayne Gretzky thing. So if you're trying to look at where the puck will be for rent growth in the next 12 to 24 months, that puck is going to be slower. That puck is going to be at 4% rent growth. Okay, so let's look at the next slide. Can figure it out here. Hope this stuff is helpful to you. All right. My next slide will be the reason. Okay. Headline on this article, which was from last year from Axos in Tampa Bay. Brianna Crane wrote this article. The new apartments constructed in Tampa Bay Metro. So just take a look. You know, in 2020, which was a pandemic year, and I know things were hard, you had 4,500 units built across the Tampa Bay area. That's almost doubled last year. And I know demand's been up. I mean, demand's been amazing. We've had so many people move here over the last 3 years, but close to 9,000 apartments, double of what was built in 2000. And so, you know, this is going to have an effect on rent all across the area. And whether it be high end or whether it be low end or whether it be workforce housing, the idea is more supply will bring things down across the spectrum. So, you know, if you're looking to rent a property in Tampa Bay, things are looking pretty good for you. All right, let's have a little bit of fun here because I think this is a theme. And again, this is going to affect how we look at interest rates moving forward. I hope this works. I don't know if I can play YouTube on here, if you'll be able to hear it. All right, before I get going here, I think it was about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, a guy named Jimmy McMillan ran for governor of New York. And he ran in the rent is too damn high party. But I want you to listen to this because this is important today. You might even be feeling this.
30 seconds more.
Allow me to introduce myself. I represent the rent is too damn high party. People are working 8 hours a day and 40 hours a week in some a third job. Women can't afford to take care of their children, feed their children breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My main job is to provide a roof over your head, food on the table, and money in your pocket. This is politics as usual. Playing a silly game. It's not going to happen. The rent too damn high movement, the people I'm here to represent can't afford to pay their rent. They're being laid off right now as I speak. They can't eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Listen, someone's stomach, child's stomach just growled. Did you hear it? You gotta listen like me.
Okay,
let's
Mr.
talk
McMillan.
about the issue.
Mr.
People can't afford to pay their
Cuomo,
rent.
30 seconds for you, sir.
Rent is too damn high.
Rent is too damn high. My man, Jimmy McMillan. I remember when that happened because we were starting to see rents go up. And again, this was 4, 5, 6 years ago. Jimmy was prescient. He saw this thing coming. And Jimmy, if you're out there and you can hear me, your message got through loud and clear. In most of the country, especially in Florida, the rent is too damn high. And the people have spoken and knew, you know, their incomes aren't keeping up with the rents being asked. And because new construction is put a lot of new product on the market and we'll put a lot of new product on for the next year, the rent is no longer too damn high. What does that mean for you if you are a multifamily owner? Well, if you're a multifamily owner, you're not going to see rent growth like you've seen over the last 3 years. If you're a multi-property owner in Florida, the rent growth just can't be baked into your pro forma anymore. You can't be assuming double-digit rent growth. You've got to be assuming rent growth at 3 to 5%. The lenders out there understand that. And so if you own a current multifamily property and you've got debt coming due in the next 6 to 12 months, we should have a conversation quickly because we can run some numbers for you, pencil this thing out, and you might be a little bit shocked. You may not get the proceeds you're looking for. In other words, you know, if you owe $4.5 million and you took out that loan 5 years ago, assuming 8 to 10% rent growth, and you locked in debt at 4%, and now the debt's closer to 6.5%. You know, you're going to be you might find yourself in for a bit of a shock. You may not get the rent proceeds. No longer can you do cash out refis. The thing that we've been talking about for the last year is cash in refis. Your $4.5 million might only pencil out to about 3.7 million this year. And so if your debt is coming due, you're going to have to come up with a strategy. We do have some solutions for that. There's preferred equity providers out there that are standing in there, so you can keep the property if you want. Maybe you don't want to keep the property, maybe you want to sell it. But again, having that conversation sooner rather than waiting until 60 or 90 days before your debt is due is going to give you a lot more options. And certainly the way to have that conversation is to call me, and my phone number is right here on my LinkedIn page. What does that mean to you if you're a multifamily buyer? Well, you still might be seeing cap rates out there, but while they may have improved a little bit since the beginning of 2023, they're probably not right where the puck is going. Like, those cap rates are probably not where the puck is going. Why do I say that? Because I do not think you'll see interest rate cuts until late this year. You've heard me been talking about this for 2 months. So if you're a multifamily property buyer in Florida, perhaps you need to be patient, or you need to be judicious with the offers you're making. If you're a multifamily seller, you need to understand that the cap rates may rise as much as 100 basis points. So when you're pricing that property, you may be ambitious, and you might start seeing offers 10 and 15% below what you think the property's worth. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're a multifamily property seller, it's probably a good idea to get it on the market sooner rather than later. You want to be on the market the next couple of months. If you're a multifamily property buyer, hey, you're sitting in pretty good shape. If you've got some cash sitting on the sidelines, you can be judicious and you can just pick things off. And either pick them off for cap rates that are 50 to 100 basis points higher than they are today, or just simply wait. Because I do think you're going to see that the rents will stall. And that, combined with the higher interest rates not coming down for 8 or 9 months, is going to put some sellers in a bind. And what's that mean to you if you're a renter in Florida? It means you might get a break, right? You may be able to go back to your existing landlord. You may be able to say, hey, look, I've been paying you on time. And not only, am I not going to accept the rent increase, but it's probably in your best interest just to let me stay put at this rent, or maybe $50 a month cheaper. So I think that's going to be good news for renters moving forward. Let's talk about interest rates. This is so important because you've heard me say over and over and over again over the last 6 months, it's the shelter, stupid. I mean, everybody is looking at that basket of commodities which make up the inflation rate and saying, well, darn it, the inflation is starting to get cooling down. It's starting to come down. And why won't the Fed cut rates? Just last December, the market got ahead of itself and said the Fed has to cut rates. And they bid up bonds and interest rates came down for a brief period of time. And I told you, hey, this isn't going to long-term trend. I think the market's trying to outsmart the Fed. I actually read the Fed minutes, and they constantly talk about shelter costs. The interesting thing about shelter costs is they don't show up in the indices until as much as 6 or 9 months later. So while we're starting to see shelter costs, shelter growth, inflation temper, it's still not down at that 2% level, and we may not see the effect of the more supply which has come on the market and the tempered rents. We may not see that effect until late summer. And if we don't see it until late summer, don't expect the Fed to cut. They keep talking about shelter, and then they keep saying things like, we remain flexible. We're going to respond to the data as they come in. And so the data as they come in, and they constantly talk about shelter. So what that means is I do not think you're going to see, I don't think you're going to see rate cuts until the fall of this year. I think you're going to have to wait until we see those shelter costs come down this summer, and you might start seeing some rate cuts in September, October, or November. I mean, sure, the Fed isn't political, but there is an election, so maybe they'll be a little bit political and they'll start rate cuts a month sooner. But these guys are adamant, if you listen to them nowadays and you read the Fed minutes, they are interested in containing inflation. And the way to contain inflation in their mind is to attack shelter costs. That is home prices and rents. So that's what I think you'll see. So what's that mean if you want to buy a home? Well, gosh, one of the challenges with the short supply of single family homes out there is you're seeing some bargains now in most markets because interest rates are high, right? Mortgage rates are close to 7%. And, everyone's sitting there and saying, well, gosh, I'll wait until those rates drop to 6%. But the residential real estate market's kind of goofy. I mean, it does reply because the single family home market is still such tight supply, it responds quickly to interest rates. So, I mean, if you're sitting waiting and saying, hey, I'm going to wait till I get a mortgage rate under 6%, by the time you do that, you might be back to those days when you're putting in 10 offers and getting outbid by some cash buyer. So it might make sense for you to be out there now trying to pick off a home because there's a lot of homes that are sitting on the market more than 60 days. And if you're willing to hold on to that, if you want to, buy that home with a 7% mortgage rate today, you'll have a good chance to refinance that. You've heard me say you can always refi, but you can never rebuy. And so, like, if you're out there looking to buy a home, now might be a pretty good time to do it. I think that's it for what I wanted to talk about today. Watch rent growth. Watch multifamily housing supply. It's going to kind of signify where that shelter cost is going to be in, say, 7 or 8 months. And I think you can add 2 months to that, 9 to 10 months is when you're going to see some Fed action. That's it. Thanks for listening today. If you need me, give me a call. My number's right on this LinkedIn.